are you tonight? Hey, Jackie. Jackie is in the house. Actually, she's probably in her car driving down the road. Am I right? Close. Pretty close. Is it too loud? Just in Zoom. Girl, I bet you are looking good. Hey, Ori. See, I figured that's what you would do. Queen of Blood Bay, Book 1. Missed that part. Hey, Ori. Is Ember coming tonight? Or Joanna? Two more minutes and then I'll start reading. Where's Shirley and Liberty? Karen. Had it glowing a while ago. So, hey, Ember. Oh, you're fine. You're fine. Some others don't even show up. So, and I'm always like, for live reads. There's Miss Shirley. Now we just got to wait on Karen. Or we're not waiting on Karen, but we're going to miss Karen. U-Haul pulled in next door earlier this afternoon. They're loading it up now. I'm so happy. I just hope my new neighbor aren't so bad. All right, y'all ready? All right, let's get going. This is Face Prophecy, Queen of the Blood Fae Book 1. Beth, come on, I yelled as I paced. Oh, this is chapter 1, Cammie. Beth, come on, I yelled as I paced our small shared apartment. I gnawed my lip nervously. If I didn't get to class on time, the professor would not let me in for the final exam. Frustration and anger bubbled to the surface. I scrolled through my phone, needing something to distract me from the fact that she was making me late again. I paced past the beige, overstuffed couch that we'd bought at a yard sale when we first moved out of the dorms 2 years ago. I was probably wearing a hole in the already worn carpet, but I hated being late, and Bethany knew that. I hate being late too. But I'm always late for this. I don't know why. It's because I watch TV. I'm in there watching Gunsmoke. She strutted from the bathroom with an annoyed look on her face and her damn designer backpack thrown over one shoulder. Take it easy. We'll get there on time. We almost always do. She strode over to the front door and pulled it open, raising a brow at me like I was the one holding us up. Sometimes I wondered how she was my best friend. We walked out into the beautiful spring morning. The sun was shining, and I sighed in relief. The rustling of trees in the cool morning breeze and the birds chirping in the distance soothed something inside me. I loved the sleepy little college town. Our apartment backed up against a rich forest, and I loved hearing the birds sing in the spring. It almost calmed my nerves about being late. Almost. We hurried to my little red Honda, and I slid behind the wheel looking at my phone. We only had 15 minutes. Shit, we can still make it as long as we don't hit any red lights along the way. Quit stressing out, she scoffed as I turned out of the parking lot onto the main street. The first light turned red. I raised an eyebrow at her. I've been excited too, Ember. I love reading. Ooh, excuse me. This always happens when I read. I love reading face stuff. Um, she hugged. Whatever. If the light didn't turn soon, we were definitely going to be late. Finally, it changed, and I looked at the clock on the dash. 12 minutes. I thought everything was going good as the next three lights were green, but when we were only a block from campus with 5 minutes left, we missed the green and I had to stop. I drummed my fingers on the dash as I watched the time dwindle. Damn it, I wish the light would turn green already. I breathed a sigh of relief when the light turned green and I punched the gas pedal down. We weren't going to make it on time, but with any luck, the professor wouldn't notice us sneaking in the back a couple minutes late. My last name being Zamora would buy me a few minutes before he called my name and marked me tardy. Cammie, watch out! A black blur barreled toward us in the intersection. I tried to slam on my brakes. That was weird. Big Daddy just walked in and looked at me and then turned around and walked out. I don't know what he thought I was doing. A black blur barreled toward us in the intersection. I tried to slam on my brakes, but it was too late. The speeding car didn't look like they even attempted to stop as they smashed into Bethany's door with a resounding crunch. The sound of screeching tires filled the car as we spun around. I heard a scream, not even realizing it was me until the back end of the car hit the lamppost. The sound of the impact burst through the air, and I smelled the burning rubber at the same time the screeching of twisted metal filled the small space. What the fuck was that? I looked up in a daze when the car finally stopped moving. The world was still spinning, even though the car had come to a complete stop, and I put my hand to my head. It's probably more. What the fuck was that? It's probably more like what it was. It's a good thing we've been wearing our seatbelts, or this could have been so much worse. That guy just ran a red light, I muttered. I was freaking out as I shoved open the car door, and got out. The world spun, and I stumbled before righting myself on the one spot on the car that wasn't completely mangled. It took a second before I even realized in my haste that Bethany had gone quiet. The windshield was spiderwebbed and had blood smeared across it. I screamed, my vision blurred, and electrical currents rushed through my veins. I was half crazed in a daze as I pulled the mangled door off the car to get to Bethany. It barely occurred to me that it shouldn't have been possible. I shouldn't have had the strength. It should have taken the jaws of life to open that heap. I reached into the car to cradle her face in my hands. I was so focused on Bethany that nothing else existed. So I didn't even see the man come up behind me and wrap his strong arms around me from behind until he was there pulling me away.
You could make this worse if you touch her. You could make it worse if you touch her.
A rough voice said close to my ear. Let me go! I tried pulling away from the strong arms that held me. I have to help her! My arms were trapped at my sides, my feet dangling back and forth. The man must have been tall, but I have yet to see my captor as he dragged me away. Tanned arms crisscrossed my chest in a firm grip. Tears streamed in rivers down my face as the man carried me away from the car with little effort, even though I was kicking and screaming the entire way to the curb. I wasn't being rational. I knew that in the back of my mind, but it didn't stop me from needing to get to her. She couldn't die. We argued that morning. The last things I'd said to her weren't nice. As soon as he let me go, I tried to run back to her, only for the stranger to capture me again and pull me into his hard chest.
Calm down. The ambulance is on the way. You'll do more damage to your friend than good if you try to move her.
He said the words, sirens, as he said the words, sirens blared in the distance.
Look, I'm going to let you go. I'm going to let go now. Don't make me chase you again.
I nodded, and when he released... Hold on, I moved. I nodded, and when he released me, it was like every bit of adrenaline flooded out of my body. I flopped down on the curb with my head in my hands, trying to make sense of all this. We were in an accident because someone had run a red light. Bethany was unconscious, but at least an ambulance was on the way. I breathed a heavy sigh and scrubbed my hands over my face. Why did you run the red light? You were sitting at a complete stop. What the hell was he talking about? My head snapped up to him, but his broad back was to me as if the question hadn't actually been directed at me. Maybe he was talking to someone else. No, it couldn't be because there was no one else around. Why was he interrogating me when Bethany was bleeding, still stuck in the front seat of my mangled car? He kneeled down in front of me. I was sitting on the curb at the edge of the intersection. Cars were stopped, pedestrians were attempting to direct traffic, police cars were beginning to screech to a halt, and this guy was treating me like this was the Spanish Inquisition.
Why did you run the red light?
He asked again, as calmly as he had the first time. Huh? No, the light turned green. Whoever was in the other car ran the red. I thought it was weird that the light had turned green, but I was in too much of a rush to think too hard about it. Had I imagined it? No. It had been green when I hit the gas. I scrubbed a hand over my face, trying to get my bearings. What the hell was going on here?
My light was green.
He looked me over, assessing for injuries.
Are you sure you're all right? Did you hit your head in the crash?
No, I said, noticing that police were barricading the intersection. I thought it was weird that the second I wished it would hurry up, the light turned green. The mystery man looked at me like I'd slapped him. Damn it, where was the ambulance? Bethany could be bleeding out for all I knew. And I was stuck on the curb with some strange dude. Look, mister, I don't have time for your 20 questions. My friend is hurt, and I'm sure the police are going to be asking me all this anyway. I attempted to stand, but he pushed me back down to the curb. What was this asshole thinking he could manhandle me? I crossed my arms over my chest as I glared at him. He was almost hard to look at. He was gorgeous. His long black hair was tied in a tail at the base of his neck, and his eyes were a bright topaz blue. Even hunched over, I could tell that he was huge with broad shoulders and bulging biceps. Biceps, that's all that's bulging at the moment, girls, is just biceps. Nothing else is bulging. But anger and curiosity warred on his features. He shook his head, his expression grim as he assessed me. It was unnerving.
What did you say?
What? Shit, he thinks I have a head injury and now I'm spouting off nonsense like a damn lunatic. Really, it's nothing. The light turned green, so I went. Bethany screamed when she saw the car coming. End of story. I still wasn't entirely sure what had happened. Weird things had been happening more and more often lately. This was just the first time anyone had gotten hurt because of it, though. He didn't seem to believe me. It didn't matter because he wasn't the one I needed to convince. He obviously ran the red. A couple of the people milling about came over, and one of the guys looked at the man warily. Why did you run the red light? The man in the baseball cap asked him, and his eyebrows shot up to the hairline as he looked at him. Our light was green, another bystander said. He was wearing, our light was green, another bystander said. He was wearing a tank top and looked like he was on his way to the beach. His board shorts had bright pink flamingos on them, and if the situation had been any different, I would have giggled. She ran the red. No, our light was clearly green. Baseball cap guy stepped between me and the two men. I put a hand on his arm in gratitude. See, he saw the light turn green also, so either you ran the red or there was some kind of glitch with the stoplights. I shrugged, looking away. That was the only explanation I could stomach. It had to be a glitch. Right, a glitch. The sexy, scary man who had hit my car raised an eyebrow at me. I had no idea if he believed my reasoning or not, and I didn't care. The sirens were getting louder, and I chanced another glance at my friend, still sitting unconscious in my passenger seat. I moved to go to her. There had to be something I could do to help her. The man glared at me and shook his head almost imperceptibly. What was he trying to do? I needed to go to Beth and at least check her vitals. The ambulance finally maneuvered itself between all the stopped vehicles, and two EMTs jumped out of the back. It was weird, but I needed to see my friend. It was like an odd electricity was running through me, and I felt the need to touch her face. I dodged the guy that had been bugging me and ran toward the EMTs who had already had her strapped on the gurney. I grabbed Bethany's hand. A pulse of energy ran down my arm like I'd touched a live wire. I cried out in pain just as my friend opened her eyes. Kim, what's going on? Her words were slurred, but she was awake. Thank God. My brow scrunched down a little as I wondered about the electrical pulse. What had happened? I didn't have time to think about that, though. The EMTs were trying to put her in the ambulance. We were in a car accident. You're going to the hospital, I said as the EMT tried to push me aside. Can I ride with her?
Only family, miss. However, I strongly suggest you join us. You were in the accident as well, and it'd be prudent for you to be checked out.
Bethany was already dozing off. Just as I reached out to touch her arm, the sense of the weird pain from before had me waving goodbye instead. No thanks. I'm fine, really.
You're declining then?
Yeah, I'm good. Just take care of my friend. Her name's Bethany. I'll be along as soon as I'm finished up here. I'm sure the police want to speak with me. The EMT nodded and jumped into the waiting ambulance. Tell Beth I'll meet her there soon, okay? I yelled before they shut the back doors. I felt eyes on me and looked over to see the man watching me with curiosity. He was rugged and sexy, but by the scowl on his face, I had a feeling he didn't like me much. He scowled. His scowl was the most intimidating thing about him. Don't look like Joanne's here. His size alone would make anyone nervous. He looked to be at least a foot taller than my 5'6" frame. His hair was a deep ebony color and slightly red highlights throughout. His eyes were bright topaz blue that seemed to delve deep in my soul and grab on. Did he ever smile? Didn't look like it.
Ma'am,
One of the police came up to me as I was making my way back over to the curb, not to be near the odd stranger, but to get out of the way of the crash site.
can can you please wait over there for us? We will need to take your statement, but we're a bit short-handed and this intersection needs to be cleared up first.
As I headed to the sidewalk where the officer had indicated, fingers brushed my arm. I spun around.
What the hell was that? Did you just try to heal her?
The man who hit my car said angrily, "What was up with this guy? He may be all things gorgeous, but he was a lunatic." "I'm not sure what you're talking about." I was seriously confused. "I can't heal people." As the words left my mouth, I realized how wrong I was. Something inside me had wanted to heal her. The buzzing under my skin, pushing down and out of my arm into her. But I wasn't going to tell this asshole that. He'd think I was an absolute nut job. Something in my expression must have given me away, though.
You could have exposed us all,
He said.
do you want the council to come down on you?
I took a step back, then another, but he still had a hold of my arm. "What are you talking about?" This guy was completely nuts.
Don't play dumb like you don't know who I am.
He growled low in his throat. He was starting to freak me out, especially when his grip tightened on my arm. I whimpered in pain. The tingles started again at a low simmer, but the longer he glared at me, the stronger they got before a pulse of heat shot out of my arm. He dropped his hand and cursed, shaking out the steam. Blisters formed on his palm where he'd been touching me.
How dare you attack me?
He haughty. His haughty attitude was getting on my nerves, and I rolled my eyes. Gosh, I'm so confused. What is happening to me? Turning away from the man, I grabbed fistfuls of my hair in frustration. Am I going crazy? Wait, maybe this is just a dream. It had to be. Shit like this didn't happen in real life. You couldn't burn people or heal people with a simple touch. It was ridiculous. Taking a deep breath, I smiled. If this was a dream, then nothing could hurt me. I have no idea what you're talking about. I didn't attack you. I don't know what just happened. Probably just some static electricity or something. I knew that couldn't be true, but that wasn't it. But if that wasn't it, then what could it be? Chapter 2, Flynn.
Who the hell do you think you are? I roared at the creature. You are nothing. Whatever little game you're playing ends now.
Game? She scoffed. Like I said before, I don't know what you're talking about. I didn't attack you. Her eyes flared with anger as she stomped her foot like a petulant child. It was a possibility I hadn't considered. Could she not really not know anything? Not a chance.
You should know better than to play games with me, little girl. Supernaturals in every realm fear me. No one would dare attack me with their magic and think they could get away with it.
Supernaturals? A crazed laugh burst from her lips. You really are insane.
You doubt that supernaturals exist or that you are one after what you've done?
I held up my hand, showing her the healing burn marks on it. She glanced around, looking for an escape. No, I guess not. I wasn't convinced. Rage still burned in my gut. Maybe I shouldn't have squeezed her arm so hard, but she was using magic out in the open and she could have doomed us all. What the hell was she? I had never met a creature that could do that. Now was not the time to worry about it. Getting her out of here before she exposed us all was priority.
You're coming with me.
I said, careful not to touch her again. She put her hands on her hips, glaring at me. What is she thinking? If anyone should be angry, it was me. I was the one with the burned hand and totaled car. She said something curious about wishing the light green. Was that why she and the other motorists thought my light was red? She'd said it was a glitch, but I didn't buy it after seeing the other ways she'd used magic. I'm not going anywhere with you. She shook her head, even as she let me lead her away from the accident. What about the police? They'll be here any second to talk to me. She looked around wildly as if trying to find any means of escape. When she realized there was none, her shoulders slumped and she huffed out a breath. But I had a feeling she wouldn't give up so easily.
The police will forget. Have no worries.
Pulling my phone from my pocket, I shot a text off to Elijah to come clean up the mess this girl had wrought. What about my car? She raised a brow in some odd challenge. Did she think I wouldn't be able to fix this mess? I had fixed far worse screw-ups with Elijah's help.
First, your car is destroyed. Second, you are so infuriating. Third,
I sighed, almost not wanting to tell her.
Third, it will be returned to you in brand new condition, like nothing happened before you got home. Before you get home, if you ever get home, if you ever go home.
I couldn't help myself. The horror on her face at my words was priceless. She stopped in her tracks as if her feet were cemented to the ground, then crossed her arms over her chest. What? She stuttered, her eyes wide. She glanced around again, but nothing had changed. There was no escape. My eyes roamed her body, which I'd already. Whew, I hate it when they do that. My eyes roamed her body, which I'd already had the brief experience of feeling pressed up against me. She smelled of sunshine and jasmine and magic. It was intoxicating. Her golden blonde hair looked like silk, begging me to run my fingers through it. Damn it, Flynn, get your head on straight.
You will be allowed to go home once we figure out what you are.
This woman was trying my every patience, and that was not something I'm allowed from anyone. Why couldn't I hold my ground and continue to scare her? I did my best not to look into those expressive, confused eyes. She still wasn't moving, and I really wasn't in the mood for another electrical zap. What am I? Newsflash, dude. I'm human, just like you. A dark chuckle exploded from me as I thought about the utter absurdity of what she had assumed. She really was naive. Can she see the predator pacing just below the surface? Just as I thought that, her eyes widened and she took a step back. There it was, the fear. Maybe it was better this way. If she feared me, I wouldn't find her so irresistible. Her bright blue eyes were wide as she looked away. Attempting to run would only wake the beast in me. It loved the hunt. The fear was the best part. It was delicious. I made it no mystery at what kind of beast I was in the Fae world. I was feared by everyone. But her fear was the sweetest of all. I took a cleansing breath, gaining total control of myself.
I am not human, and neither are you. I can smell Fae on you.
Leaning down, I took a small breath.
And something else. Something ancient that I can't place.
She shook her head. You're insane, she said, but she didn't sound so convinced anymore.
Look,
I held up my nearly healed hand that she had scorched only moments ago. She gasped. No, 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 no. This is a dream. It has to be. None of this is real. Wake up, Cammie. You're having a weird ass dream. She looked at me. Maybe a nightmare.
if it's a dream or a nightmare, it won't matter if you come with me then.
My grin was triumph. She couldn't fault my logic, even if it was all a bit underhanded, letting her believe it was a dream to get her to follow me. I had no problem using whatever means necessary for my own ends. Why not? This isn't the strangest dream I've ever had. A ghost of a smile spread on her lips.
If I touch you, you're not going to zap me again, are you?
I raised an eyebrow at her. Well, you guys are quiet tonight. We walked toward a cluster of trees so that we could disappear without anyone seeing. Elijah had already messaged that he was on the sea. Excuse me, doing damage control. One problem down. Too bad it was the easier of the two I was facing. Not that it mattered. I would get what I wanted, even if I had to force her. I'd been accommodating up until now. She would be wise not to tip the odds and try something she would regret. That depends. Where are you taking me? Going off into the woods with a stranger, and I emphasize the word strange, even though it's still daylight and it's not in my plan, nightmare or not. The girl had spunk.
I thought you were dreaming. We need to go see the council. They will know what you are. Hold on.
I grabbed her around the waist before she could resist. I sifted us to the council chambers. Her body was pressed up against mine, and she held my shirt in a death grip with her fist. She squeezed her eyes closed tight, and I almost kicked myself. Sifting for the first time was a jarring experience. It made me realize even more that she actually had no idea what world she'd blown into like a hurricane. What the hell was that? She panted out as she leaned her head against my chest. The warmth of her forehead seeped beneath the thin fabric of my shirt as she attempted to get her bearings. Fuck. I need to get away from her. She was too much, too close, but I couldn't bring myself to let her go just yet.
We sifted. It's the only way to get to the council.
I shrugged as she took a step back from me. I felt cold the second her body heat left mine.
This is good.
No way was I getting any closer to her. What the hell was I thinking? I didn't even know what the girl was, let alone who she was. She could be deceiving me. I had enough enemies because of my title, but I was pretty good at reading people. So I didn't think that was the case.
Are you coming?
I called out, stomping my way down the dirt path to the gleaming white building a few yards away.
You don't want to be caught out here on your own. It may be beautiful, but it's deadly.
Her footsteps hurried behind me as she made her way toward me. She had taken my word for it. The thing was, she probably never seen anything like the plants and animals that hunted in this forest. They did it. I always have a hard time with this word. They didn't make a difference between. See, I substitute too. They didn't make a difference between friend and foe either, and some were also known to be cannibals if there was no food around. Even the plants knew not to approach me. So she was safer with me than on her own. Well, safe from the plants. I was something else more dangerous. I smiled. No, she wasn't an enemy. She was just a girl. A naive little girl who had no idea who she was. Or worse, who I was. A malicious smirk lit my features as I imagined her terror when she found out who I was and the things I could do. The pain would be exquisite. Chapter 3, Cammie. And it's probably the last chapter, y'all. My mouth is so dry. Twice. He held me against his tall and ridiculously firm chest, and I didn't even know his name. I had to be dreaming. There was no way I would have taken off with a man without finding out his name in real life. Yep, definitely a dream. I hurried toward him because, dream or not, I could feel the deadly beauty of the place he had brought me to. What's your name? I decided it would be best to get that information before we went into wherever this dream nightmare was taking me. You'll find out soon enough, he called back over his shoulder. I don't want to find out. I want you to tell me, I said, my tone irritated. He whipped around, glaring at me. I tried to hide the fear behind false bravado, but it was difficult. This was terrifying when we scowled at him. This man was terrifying when he scowled at me like that. He almost didn't seem real, like he was larger than life. What did it say about me that the predator in him was what I found most attractive? I don't owe you a thing, least of all my name, little girl. Remember that. I am not a nice person when crossed. You don't seem like a very nice person, period. I glared back at him. That was probably a stupid thing to say, but I was way past fear and bordering on anger. I was getting tired of this overgrown alpha hole pushing me around. Even if it was a nightmare, I didn't deserve it. You haven't seen me angry, he growled. He growled, getting right in my face. My breath caught in my lungs as I looked into his violet eyes. There was something dangerous lurking behind them, practically glowing with hunger. It was exciting and terrifying at the same time. He inhaled deeply, and a soft groan left his parted lips. My body heated up, tingling in a totally different way. His hand shot out and curled around the back of my neck. He slammed his lips against mine, tugging on my hair. I gasped, and he took that opportunity to deepen the kiss. His teeth bit down on my bottom lip, and I whimpered at the sting. What the hell was that? I wasn't the type of girl to let a guy dominate my mouth the way he just did. When he'd just done when I didn't even know his name. He wrenched his lips from mine, stumbling back a few steps. With wide eyes, he stared at me. Impossible, he whispered. What the actual fuck was he talking about? I breathed heavily, staring into violet eyes. What's impossible? I was so confused by all that happened. Was any of this real? I tasted the coppery taste of my blood from where he bit my lip. I felt the sting. This wasn't a dream. I wouldn't be bleeding or feeling that type of pain if it were. Holy shit! I backed away from him. What the fuck is going on? Oh God, where the fuck am I? I looked around wildly. Everything seemed more sinister now that I knew this was fucking real. Maybe I'd lost my mind and I was hallucinating. The guy took a step toward me, but I shook my head, distancing myself from him. Everything in the forest seemed to darken as I continued to take small steps away from him. It didn't do any good, though, because for every 2 steps I took back, one of his ate up the space between us. I had to get out of here. I went to take another step and backed myself into a tree. Fuck. I was trapped. What the fuck was I supposed to do now? This man was a predator. Fear tingled across my senses with my need to flee. I wouldn't go any I wouldn't go any farther. His soft growl met my ears. But when I looked up at him, he wasn't looking at me. He was staring at a small bush less than 2 feet from me with the most beautiful pink flowers on it. It looked like it was moving closer to me, but that couldn't be right. Whole bushes didn't move, did they? Did they? What the fuck? Did that bush just move? I thought I could be more terrified before, but man, was I wrong. That bush had moved toward me, and the man looked concerned. Move away from the tree slowly. He put out his hand, motioning for me to walk toward him. My legs shook as I took small, slow steps away from the tree. I looked into his violet eyes and did my best not to watch the little bush. I had no idea what it was. I'd never seen flowers like that before. The plant seemed to pulse as it had moved. What is that? I whispered, but the man shook his head, motioning me toward him. I heaved out a breath and continued forward when I heard a rustling. I couldn't stop myself from looking back. The damn bush was moving faster across the underbrush. I panicked and ran to the man. He seemed to be the lesser of two evils at the moment. He shouted something, but I was too scared to pay attention to what it was. When I was only a foot away from him, he snarled and disappeared. I cried out in fear and spun in a circle. He stood between the bush and me with a great gleaming sword at the ready. Holy shit! Who carried around a fucking sword that looked like it belonged at medieval times? The plant hissed before slithering away. What was that thing? My hands shook as I brought them up to my lips. That had been too close. After what he had said about the forest being dangerous and the way he freaked out when he saw that plant, I knew nothing good could come from that thing's attention on me. Calm down, he said, taking another step closer to me with his hands in the air, as though attempting to pacify a wayward child. Where the hell had the sword gone? It had vanished. It's okay, he said. We're going to talk to the council. It'll be fine. Did you drug me? Is this all some crazy hallucination? Maybe I did hit my head in the accident. I was on the verge of a panic attack, my eyes brimming with tears. How stupid was I? I'd followed this man, who was clearly dangerous, into a place that looked lethal. His strong arms wrapped around me and my heart rate calmed. He was like the forest that surrounded us, beautifully lethal, but that didn't stop me from feeling just a little safe with him. What would happen when he took me to this council? Would they treat me the way he did, with disdain, while at the same time making me feel safe? Or would they be more sinister? He had said before that I didn't want the council to come down on me. Would they try to hurt me because I almost revealed magic? Magic. This was completely ridiculous. Did I really believe all this? I was just attacked by a damn plant. I was so confused and terrified, my breathing shallowed as I started to hyperventilate. Flynn, my name is Flynn, he said. Shock flooded my system as he kissed my forehead, dragging me from the thoughts that threatened to overwhelm everything else. His kiss reached down into my soul and caressed the panic, easing the stress, but at the same time reminding me that everything about the experience was foreign. You can trust me, he whispered in the space between us. I'm not going to let anything happen to you. I believed him. I didn't know why, but doing so would either be the right choice or the worst mistake of my life. Only time would tell. Yes, you do need to get this book, Nina. I concur. All right. Think I got time for one more chapter? Let me read one more. Give Flynn equal opportunity. I still got 10 minutes. Flynn. Taking a step back from the warmth of her body, I turned and ran a hand through my black hair. What the hell was wrong with me? I growled in anger and frustration. Why the hell is she doing to What the hell is she doing to me? I grumbled to myself. I spun on my heel, mentally berating myself for the whole mess. What? She asked, chewing her lip. I just asked her to trust me. Was that why I was second guessing taking her to the council? Nothing. I don't have time for this, or for you. What kind of magic is this? What have you done to me? What kind of magic is this? What have you done to me? I shook my head, unsure why I was even asking her. I don't know how many times I have to tell you. I don't know. If I was smart, I'd drop her off at the council's doorstep and be done with the entire encounter. I wasn't smart, apparently. I was stupid because there was no way I was handing the frustrating creature over to them. No fucking way. When the death blossom bush had come after her, I had reacted on instinct, putting myself between her and the danger. What the hell was wrong with me? I didn't owe her anything. Why would I go out of my way to protect her when I was taking her to the council anyway? I wasn't sure I wanted to take her there now. What would they do when they found out about this unknown Fae? She was Fae, but also different, and those bastards didn't like different. She was much more. Finding an unknown Fae would be a problem for them, especially if she was what I was certain she was. She was dangerous in more ways than one. But at the top of the list of things I didn't know was why I had kissed her. At the first taste of her blood on my tongue, I knew exactly what she was to me. It showed me everything about her. I had to get away from her. I had heard of this happening to Faye before, but it was rare. Most Fae never found their mate. She couldn't possibly be my true mate. I wouldn't allow this creature to get under my skin even more than she already had. It was part of the curse the Druids put on us centuries ago, which made everything with this girl that much more complicated. As I stared at her from a few feet away, making the decision that I knew I'd end up regretting, I moved quickly to her, pulling her into my arms and sifted us to my home in the mountains, instead of having her meet the council. Flynn, where are we? Gosh, the sound of my name on her lips made my beast howl. He wanted to claim her. I couldn't have that. The bond couldn't be fully formed. I needed to figure out who her parents were and what exactly we were dealing with. I'd seen her entire life flash before my eyes during our kiss, so I knew for sure that she had no idea what she was, and that was dangerous to both of us. I know what you are, and I couldn't take you to the council. We're in my home, far from the council's jurisdiction. You'll stay here for now. What are you talking about? How do you know what I am? Where exactly are we? She was asking questions than she was asking more questions than I could answer, and I was positive she wasn't going to believe me anyway. I grabbed her hand to lead her inside so she'd have no choice but to follow and not return and not turn and run. Running would be a fool's errand anyway. The council didn't already know of her existence, I was sure they'd find out soon enough. They had spies everywhere. She'd already had one run in with the creature of my realm. She would be dumb to flee, but I refused to take that chance. I built my home years before, setting it in the heart of the mountains away from anyone. The rustic setting blended in with the forest surrounding us. Every time I stepped onto my porch, a sense of nostalgia overtook me, remembering centuries earlier, before the modernization of the world. While I'd never given up the use of technology and modern convenience, it was nice to keep a sense of where I'm coming from. Shaking myself from thoughts of the past, I figured answering her as truthfully as possible was the best way to deal with her.
When I bit your lip, I could taste the wild magic in your blood, but I could also taste the fey magic.
Bringing her into the den, I set her down on the quilted sofa and made my way over to the fireplace. A warm, crackling fire could soothe any soul.
It was intoxicating, honestly, and I almost couldn't pull away.
I refused to look at her as I put the lit match to the dried kindling. I didn't want to see the expression on her face at my admission. While it was spring and the fire wasn't necessary, I hoped staring into the dancing flames would calm her as it usually did me. Wild magic? She asked. The skepticism in her voice wasn't unexpected. Flynn, nothing you've said since the moment I met you is making any sense. I don't have magic. Magic doesn't exist. She tapped her foot on the coffee table, attempting to get my attention. I've got to go check on Bethany. I just left her. She's waiting for me at the hospital,
Your friend will be fine.
I said, tossing a few logs into the fireplace. Now was not the time to tell her that Elijah was also taking care of that small problem.
More importantly, you are still you are still denying magic. You burned my hand when you felt threatened. You turned the light to green when you were in a rush. You attempted to heal Bethany, and I'm sure there are a million other things you've done over the last year or so that are impossible to explain. The vision had shown me every single one of them, but I wasn't going to tell her that. I didn't need to have that conversation with her. Not ever. No matter how beautiful she was with her golden blonde hair and bright blue eyes, no matter how much my beast howled in my head to calm her, I made my choice. She would never be mine. I couldn't afford to have such attachments. I had a job to do, and that was the only thing I could focus on. She looked unsure, but eventually nodded. Okay, oh grand one. So then what am I? I let out a resigned sigh, then walked over to the large oak bar. I grabbed a bottle from the top shelf and flinched when it clinked against another bottle of aged, expensive scotch. I was wound up tighter than usual, and I needed the burn of alcohol to calm my frayed nerves. I grabbed two glasses and poured us each a single shot of whiskey. There was no doubt in my mind we both could use it. Handing her the tumbler, I sat down on the overstuffed sofa, making sure to sit on the opposite side. You are high fae, most likely a dark fairy or druid hybrid.
She choked on her first sip of the whiskey, which was truly unfortunate considering its age. Hysterical laughter bubbled up out of her, considering she had had only one mouthful of alcohol. I had to assume the behavior was in fact based on the knowledge I just presented. Despite the ridiculousness of the situation, I couldn't help but notice her tinkling laugh. It was a beautiful sound that soothed the raging monster inside of me. I raised an eyebrow, a ghost of a smile on my lips as I waited for her to calm. So, an evil fairy and a druid walked into a bar, she hiccupped between giggles. It was the most ridiculous thing I'd ever heard. Dark doesn't necessarily mean evil, I growled. Her laughter stopped abruptly. Why was I sticking up for the dark fuckers? I wasn't one of them. I was far more dangerous. My hand tightened around my glass and I took another sip to attempt to calm my nerves. I needed to remind myself that she didn't know any better.
Sorry, but you can't really.
Oh, sorry, but you can't really blame me here. This morning, I woke up a girl going to class at college. A few hours later, I'm in some wizard's den being told I'm a dark fairy. She put the tumbler on the coffee table, keeping her head tilted down. I didn't like seeing her acting sure of herself, or the fact that she wouldn't quite meet my eyes. And those feelings only pissed me off even more. I needed to get her out of my home, but I couldn't do that until I ensured her safety. I wouldn't let the council hurt her, even if I refused to claim her. Shifting closer, I lifted her chin and looked into her eyes.
You're Faye, and it's fine. Just don't let others hear you say things like that. They'll not understand that you don't know any better.
We stared at each other for long minutes before I tore my eyes away from hers and stood up from the sofa, making my way back over to the fireplace where it was safer. I knew why I was feeling the way I did, but it didn't matter. Mate or not, we could never be. I had responsibilities that didn't include her. But even as I remembered that, I imagined pushing her up against the wall and fucking her senseless. A pounding on the door distracted me from from thoughts I couldn't from thoughts I couldn't have.
Stay here. I'll get rid of them.
But
I said stay. There is no one at the door I want to meet you to meet. Do not move.
I stomped my way to the door, hoping the stubborn girl listened. Elijah was there with one of the council members. "Was the girl?" the lanky ghost of a councilwoman asked. I recognized her immediately. It was Margaret. She would be running errands for Morgan. Elijah raised an eyebrow as he took a step forward. I held up my hand, blocking the door with my hulking frame. He wouldn't come in until his friend Margaret was on her way. How dare he bring the councilwoman to my door?
What girl?
I did my best to look confused. Crossing my arms over my chest, I turned my attention to the woman. She had no right to come into my land and make demands. I'd let the council get away with a lot more than I should have, and it looked like they thought I was weak because of it. I would show them if they pushed me too far. "The girl you were supposed to bring to see the council, the one who almost exposed us to humans? Where is she?" How did they find out about her so quickly? Was it Elijah? Had he sold me out? No, I don't think so. He knew better than that. It must have been one of their spies. Was it rude to stand in the doorway and not let them in? Probably. But dealing with the council, now that I had a taste of Camille, wasn't on my top 10 things to do.
I changed my mind. No need to bring her in.
Council had no control over me, and they knew it. That their intimidation tactic of showing up at my home wasn't going to work. Obviously, now I want to know why. She raised a gray, bushy eyebrow at me. Ugh. Seriously, woman, get some grooming.
She's pretty. I think I'll keep her for myself.
I smirked. It wasn't a complete lie since every part of my body wanted her. It was my brain that was holding me back. The councilwoman's face turned an ugly tomato red. "You can do that."
Actually, I can't. She's in my territory, and you have no jurisdiction here.
I took a menacing step toward her, and the idiot didn't even have the sense to back away from my challenge. The dumb light fairy had some guts, but I was no mortal, and getting into it with a fairy who happened to be a woman was no issue for me. Power was power in our world, and this light fairy was going to have a swift lesson, even if it had to happen on my front porch.
You want to start a war over an abomination? I know even you're not that stupid.
This woman seemed to be attempting to start a war. Did she really just call me stupid?
What the fuck did you just call her? The guttural growl that left me had her eyes widening. My beast was prowling under my skin, wanting to come out and shred her. She lifted a brow at me. You know why she can't be allowed to live, Flynn? If she is what I think she is, then she must be destroyed. Taking an aggressive step to tower over her, my beast barely contained, I ground low and deep. Leave now. Don't come back. If I see your face on my land again, I will shred your skin from your body while you're still alive. Last warning. Her face paled. This isn't over. The girl will be destroyed. She's too dangerous to be left alive. With that, she sifted away. Well, that was interesting. Elijah smirked. He pushed his light brown hair away from his emerald green eyes. I turned my gaze to him. What the hell were you doing with her? And why the hell would you bring her to my home? The beast was banging against the barriers I'd put up, snarling and wanting nothing more than to tear my friend to pieces. Wasn't with her. Wasn't with her. The asshole popped up just as I did and started pounding on the door. And seriously? Trust, man. Where's the trust? He looked disgusted. Elijah hated those bastards more than I did. So he pushed his way into my house, ignoring the beast and me. Where's the girl? Did you get the accident cleaned up? Take care of the police and her friend? I wasn't sure if I wanted him around my mate. My beast didn't. Wait, where the fuck did that thought come from? She wasn't now and could never be anything but a girl. I didn't do mates. I fucked hard and left. And, oh, just your kind of man, Nori. It may make me an asshole, but I really didn't give a fuck. I had too much shit to do to worry about anything else. I didn't realize this chapter was going to be this long, y'all. Sorry. Once again, I was questioning my own sanity. I needed to get the fuck away from her. Hurt her so she wouldn't go, so she would want to go, but I could never let her go now that I knew the council wanted her. He rolled his eyes. Been around a few centuries. I know the score, Flynn. What's up with you and this girl? Fuck me, I didn't have time for this. Look, everything is as it should be. Relax. Oh, look, everything is as it should be. Relax, Elijah said, still grinning. No one remembers a thing. Her friend is pretty much in La La Land. The girl's car is at her apartment, good as new. It doesn't matter. Now that the council knows what she is, she can't possibly go back to her old life. Rubbing a hand over my face, I groaned. This was getting more fucked up by the moment, and Elijah was staring at me like he was trying to figure out a puzzle. Stop looking at me like that. Like what? He laughed, knowing exactly what I was talking about, ignoring my behavior. He pushed past me and through the door to the den. He was the only one who could get away with something like that. Asshole, I grumbled. Elijah sauntered into the cozy room and looked at Camille, who was surprisingly still seated on the sofa, though the tumbler of whiskey was now empty. He leaned over the sofa, extending his hand. If he wasn't careful, I'd be damaging the appendage soon. Camille, it's lovely to meet you. I'm Elijah, though everyone but this guy, he threw his thumb over his shoulder, calls me Eli. No one calls you that. I scoffed as I made my way back over to the bar. The bottle of whiskey was still on the dark wood bar top, and I grabbed it, considering to myself how rude it might be to just start chugging directly from the bottle. It wouldn't get me drunk. It was human whiskey. I didn't keep fire whiskey on hand because of idiots like Elijah. He was enough of a pain in the ass when he was sober. I really didn't want him to get drunk in my home all the time. He could do that elsewhere and leave me out of it. Camille placed her petite hand in his and gave him a heartwarming smile. My friends call me Cammie. It's really nice to meet you, Eli. She blushed. Fuck no, that shit wasn't flying. Elijah bent at the waist, half leaning over the sofa and kissed her hand.
I cleared my throat and planted my feet, locking my knees, so I, or rather the beast, wouldn't tackle him. Elijah's chuckle hit my ears. Fucker was messing with us. He needed to leave the den before I lost my hard-won back control and pounded him into the marble floor.
Don't you have something to do besides torturing me? Yeah, actually I do. He grinned down at Camille, then gave her a wink. I'll be back later, dog. Got to go check in with the guards.
Guards? Cammie asked quietly, then tossed her head back over her shoulder to look at me.
He didn't tell you, mon ami?
I can't do French, y'all.
Flynn here is the blood prince.
That was it. Elijah was a dead man. And that's the end of the chapter. Thank you, Miss Shirley. I appreciate that. And thank you, Miss Ember, for letting me read it. I'm so glad you let me read this. I appreciate it. Yeah, when I finally came back over to you in Nashville, oh, it's over here now. You were running out of books, so I didn't even take a book. You were running low or something, and you didn't have. I don't think you had any swag left either. Well, I enjoyed it too, and I want book two on my schedule. So whenever you got it coming out, get with Nina and get it on the schedule because I love Fae books. And I'm sorry I ran over. I was judging the first three chapters, and the fourth one was a little longer. But that's okay. I didn't mind. It was well worth it. Yay! Yeah, I like to do the phase. I like to do the paranormal, supernatural, whatever, because then I get to pull out all these other characters that I don't get to use often enough. And no, ma'am, I'm not going to be doing any more. I probably won't do any this year. I'm in Georgia, and Nashville's just 2 hours away from me. I'm right outside of Chattanooga, Tennessee. So if I can't drive there in a couple hours, I don't usually go. I think maybe this year I'm going to. There's one down in Atlanta, and I'll probably go to that one. But yeah, I'm not doing too many. I don't do too many of those. I can't afford it. We won't even discuss what I spent in Nashville. That was my weekend vacation away from here. That was it. So, all right, everybody, go get your book. It's on KU or it's $2.99. Easy peasy. It's cheaper than a coffee these days. And if you like that, watch for the next one. Other than that, be safe if you're in the storm zone. Be safe if you're in a sick zone. Be safe if you're in a war zone. Wherever you're at, just be safe. And grab a book and read it. Or grab a Kindle and read a book. Whatever you got to do. Yep, that'll be next year, I do believe. I should be there if I survive next year. We'll have all kinds of fun. Only I ain't going downtown with you guys anymore. You bitches are too wild for this girl. No, I'm staying at the room and getting drunk there. All righty, everybody. Have a wonderful evening and a wonderful weekend. And I'll see you guys next Wednesday. Happy reading.